Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate the release of Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn, the brand new standalone novel from Jessica Redland. And there it is. It just looks gorgeous. I just love those sun rays on the cover. It's absolutely lovely, isn't it?
Love it. Gorgeous. You know, every time I get a new book, I say it's my favourite, but this is just such a beautiful cover. Love it.
It's absolutely stunning. How have you been celebrating Publication Day, Jessica?
Oh gosh, I learned a long time ago that there's no point trying to do any normal work around it, no point writing or anything. So just take the day off to respond to all the lovely comments on social media. But hubby and I went out for lunch. We went to a local farm where there's a cafe. And the sun was shining and there were some cows. So I got to take some lovely pictures of cows, and it felt very appropriate to be out for lunch at a farm celebrating Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn. And I had a lovely scone, not scone, if you're listening, and some sponge cake.
Oh, lovely.
That was nice.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds absolutely ideal and very apt for this book in particular. So, Jessica, I was wondering if you could start off by just telling our audience a bit about Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn and give us a bit of an overview of your new release.
Yeah. So Healing Hearts of Bumblebee Barn is the story of Barney, who is a young farmer. He runs Bumblebee Barn, and it's a mixed farm, so animals and crops. And it's been in his family for 4 generations. But he's running it on his own, and he would absolutely love to find the woman of his dreams to share life on the farm with, sunrises, sunsets. But he's been really unlucky in love, bless him. And his sister Fizz puts that down to him repeatedly picking women who are completely unsuited to farming, who are just, never going to live this sort of life. And she suggests something radical to him to help him find love. She has seen a contestant appeal for a new TV show called Love on the Farm, aimed specifically at finding love for farmers. And she thinks that this would be a great way to do something completely different. He's not really a fan of reality TV. He's very dismissive at first, but then thinks, what the heck? There's no way I'm going to be picked. But of course he is. And the story is told in 2 perspectives. It's from Barney's point of view, but also Amber, who is the producer on the show. Now, she also hates, in fact, she doesn't just dislike reality TV, she hates it with a passion. And usually she works on countryside programmes, like one called Countryside Calendar, kind of think country file-ish for that. But she has some personal reasons why she would like to be in the area of Bumblebee Barn at the time that it would be getting filmed. And so she sort of reluctantly agrees that she will be the producer on it. And I won't tell you any more about the plot than that, because that's just what you'd pick up from the blurb and what I've said. What I would say, though, is that although the premise of using reality TV, maybe you'd think it's more of a rom-com kind of plot. I haven't changed genre and started writing rom-coms. It's still my usual style of an emotional but uplifting story, all about family, friendship, relationships, community, that bit of depth within the drama. There are some laughs because, it's a bit inevitable when you're writing about reality TV, but might be reaching for the tissues as well at a couple of
100%. It's as somebody who has read all of your books many times, it is one of my favorites. And I know I said you shouldn't have favorites, but I just absolutely love this story. I think the concept is brilliant. I think you'll do it brilliantly. But you've got that light and shade, as you say, even though it's got, some light-hearted themes, things like reality TV. It's your usual hard-hitting story, and I just absolutely loved it, and I can't wait for everyone to be able to read it. I know the early reviews we've had have been incredible. People who have managed to read it are loving it. So huge congratulations, because it is such a brilliant story. We've got lots and lots of people joining us. I just want to say hi to everyone that's saying hello to us. So hello to Misa, to Andrea, to Grace, Karen, Lindsay, Tanya, Fiona, Jude, Lizzie. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's really, really nice to see you. As always, please leave comments, please ask questions. Jessica's more than happy to answer them as we go through this session this evening. But don't be shy and drop us a comment. So before we go into a bit more about Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn, I was wondering, Jessica, if you'd give us a bit of a sneak peek and do us a lovely reading from the book, and then we'll get to chatting a bit more about it afterwards.
Okay, very happy to do that. So anyone who's listened to it before from me does know I do like to do a bit of a reading. I'm going to read from actually quite far into the book. It's from chapter 31, and I've picked it because it's a really fun chapter where Amber, the producer of Live on the Farm, meets with one of the three women who have been lined up for the show to meet Farmer Barney. Now, if anybody has already read this or has it in front of them, I have cut out just a couple of bits that would give a spoiler to the overall story, but what I'm telling you won't set off any spoilers. I mentioned Zara, and she's Amber's assistant, and I mentioned somebody called Matt, and he is the director on the show. And the contestant they're about to meet is Rain. Rain lived with her mum, stepdad, and three younger siblings in a large townhouse with a long walled back garden. A wooden bench below a rose-strewn pergola at the far end provided the perfect backdrop for filming, a tranquil pocket of nature away from any traffic noise and children playing. Oozing with confidence, Rain's dream was to perform in the West End. She just graduated with a first-class honours drama and theatre degree from Lancaster University and had an impressive CV of lead roles in local productions. After we'd filmed various introductory sound bites, we moved on to the show, starting with an easy question. What do you think of the countryside? Excuse me, I asked, smiling at her. I love the countryside, she gushed, her ice blue eyes sparkling, running up to the top of a hill, flinging my arms out wide and belting out, "The hills are alive!" is so magical. Of course, if it's winter and there's snow on the ground, I love to go into a wide open space and channel Elsa. Everyone thinks of Let It Go, and don't get me wrong, it's a banger of a tune, but I love Into the Unknown best. Do you know it? It's from Frozen 2. Before I could respond, she rose from the garden bench and burst into song, complete with dramatic gestures and exaggerated facial expressions. Zara disappeared off up the lawn, and I knew she'd had to do that to compose herself. I was struggling to keep a straight face myself, and looking round the crew, I clearly wasn't the only one. It wasn't that she was bad. It was just so unexpected. Rain's singing voice was actually quite stunning, and I had no doubt that she could hold her own on a West End stage. But was this show going to help catapult her there? Doubtful. I'm a Disney princess, she announced, positioning herself back on the bench after her song and looking coyly at the camera. You're a what? Oh, not for real. Her laugh was more like a small child's giggle. I do children's parties and other events. Elsa, of course, already got the hair. That warranted a massive flick of her long blonde waves, as though she was in a shampoo advert. She pointed at me. You'd make an awesome Anna with that gorgeous red hair. Can you sing? Only in the car when I'm alone. Ears would be bleeding if there was anyone with me. Sophie, my sister, was actually the only talented singer in our family. Oh, you poor thing. Rain clutched her hand across her heart. We can't all have the gift. I'm sure there are plenty of other things you're good at. Zara had only just returned and had to leave again. I swear I could hear her snorts of laughter. What about spending time in the countryside but not singing? I asked, hoping to get a sensible answer this time. I'm not really a countryside kind of girl, she said, wrinkling her nose. Too many creepy crawlies and nothing to do on an evening. I'm definitely a city girl. Beside me, Matt tutted. I didn't dare look at him. So, Rain, this programme is called Love on the Farm, and it's all about matching you up with a farmer. Our farmer lives deep in the Yorkshire Wolds countryside, nowhere near a city, so we were expecting some answers that perhaps included a love for the countryside. She'd leaned forward, her brow creased, and appeared to be listening to me intently, nodding frequently. Give me a bit more, she said, beckoning the information with both hands. Well, I glanced at Matt, but he shrugged. Maybe you have some fond memories of time spent in the countryside or visiting a farm. Perhaps you have favourite animals? This farmer has animals? Yes, he has a mixed farm, so some crops and some animals. What sort of animals? Sorry, but I can't give anything else away. It's meant to be a surprise when you meet him next week. Okay, understood. Crops and farm animals. She rubbed her temples as though that helped her take in what I was saying. Yes, I can work with that. Do you mind if we take 5? I glanced up at Matt. That's fine, he said. Take 15. We'll have a coffee break and resume filming at 11:15. I planted my hands on my hips, shaking my head in disbelief as I watched Rain sauntering up the garden. Her mum approached her, and they were soon deep in conversation with lots of pacing and waving around of the arms. Do you think she even applied for this show? Matt asked. Could they have plucked her out of the out of the applicants for tropical heat or something like that? Nothing would surprise me anymore. I reached for my flask. Wish we had something stronger than coffee. After our drinks, we prepared for filming again. Rain asked if her mother could watch. Neither Matt nor I had a problem with that, as long as she kept quiet and her presence didn't distract Rain. Rain settled onto the bench again and threw me a dazzling smile. Ask me that question about what I think about the countryside again. I've worked on my part and have an awesome answer prepared. Her part? Oh, God. But we were just going to have to go with it. What do you think of the countryside? I asked. She beamed at the camera, eyes sparkling. I absolutely love the countryside. I live in a market town, but it's surrounded by fields and hills, so it's almost like I live in the country. My grandparents on my dad's side of the family used to have a small holding, and I loved staying there as a child. I'd collect the eggs from the hen house in the morning and help feed the other animals. Her smile slipped, and her eyes filled with tears. They passed 8 years ago, within a couple of weeks of each other. There isn't a day goes by when I don't miss them and their beautiful home. A tear slipped down her cheek, and I actually felt a lump in my throat, even though I was fairly sure it was all an act. Cut, Matt instructed. Rain beamed at me once more and wiped away the rogue tear. Darling, that was fabulous, her mother cried, rushing towards her with a bag of makeup and checking the tear streak hadn't done any damage. Was that the kind of thing you were looking for? Rain asked. Because we can explore a different angle if you prefer. It was great, Matt said. Amber will run through the rest of the questions with you now. The rest of the filming went smoothly. A natural in front of the camera, we managed most questions in the first take. Rain occasionally asked about the type of answer we were seeking, took 5 for a conversation with her mother, then came back and delivered a dream response. While the crew were packing up, earlier than expected due to so few takes being needed, Zara and I sat down with Rain and ran through the plans for filming at Bumblebee Barn the following week. Today has been amazing, she said when we'd finished. I've learned so much. I can't thank you enough. It's our pleasure, and it's been lovely to meet you. I wasn't lying. She was lovely. Although we'd finished for today and it was time to head back to Hedgehog Hollow, there was one question I had to ask, or it was going to niggle away at me. That stuff about your grandparents and the small holding, was it true? Elements of it. It was more of an allotment than a small holding, and a scabby one at that. I hated visiting. Granny and Grandad and maggots would send me for eggs, and the hen house was always covered in shit, and the hens would go for me. One day a fox had got in and slaughtered them all. Traumatised me for life, that did. What did you say their names were? Zara asked. Rain laughed, a deeper sound than earlier, bordering on a cackle. Granny and Grandad maggots. They wouldn't throw food away, even when it was past its best and mouldy. Next stage was maggots, so the name stuck, suited them. She shuddered. He's dead. Died before my birth dad buggered off with that little slapper from his office. And I don't know and don't care about Granny Maggots. Good riddance, she was such a bitch. So you don't like the countryside? I asked. Bloody hate it. Like I said to you before, it's full of creepy crawlies and bad memories for being forced to stay with those two nutters. No wonder my birth dad was tapped. She patted above her temple with a finger to emphasise a point. With loony parents like that, what chance did he have? Her tone dripped of bitterness, and her lip was curled in disgust. And then, as though a switch had been flicked, the radiant smile returned with the soft voice. Is there anything else you need from me today? No, we're good. I stood up. Thank you. There's a little more to that chapter, but I'll stop there as, again, the next bit would give it a couple of spoilers. So will Rain be a match for Farmer Barney? Well, you'll just have to read the book to find out.
That was amazing. I absolutely love it. I'm so glad you picked that. I didn't know which section you were going to pick before, and that's such a fun one. So thank you so much.
I wondered about whether to go for the beginning, but I've recorded a couple of snapshots from the beginning that Claire's going to share across the week, and I just thought, no, I'll dive somewhere later. And normally you can't because of spoilers, but I just thought, no, that one's fun, and
that's really fun. And in the comments, everyone is just absolutely loving that section as well. Everyone, and we always have this every time you do a reading, people always say you should narrate your own audiobooks because people just think you do such a fun, brilliant job. There's a couple of little teasers in that section that I wanted to pick up on. So one of them is, you mentioned Hedgehog Hollow. So I just wanted to ask, for benefit of anyone who's watching now, do you have to have read the Hedgehog Hollow series to enjoy this book?
Definitely not. Obviously, I've got a lot of readers who do love Hedgehog Hollow, love the whole world, and understandable because it's gorgeous. But readers who've read and loved Hedgehog Hollow will get a treat because the Rescue Centre does feature, and with Fizz being Barney's sister, she is, of course, in it. And we do get to see a few more of the Hedgehog Hollow characters. It's set a year after Christmas Miracles that Hedgehog Hollow ends. So you will get a little glimpse of what's happened since the end of the series. But it has been very much designed to work as a standalone stories, and readers do not have to have read Hedgehog Hollow first. I'd love to think that those who haven't will then think, do you know what? I actually would like to and dip in, but I know there are readers out there who do not like to read in series, and the great thing is I think quite a few of them have read my series and go, do you know what, I make the exception there because I really enjoy these. But yeah, you definitely don't have to have read Hedgehog Hollow, and it's been good because as I've seen early reviews coming in, that's been reiterated, people saying, you know, it made sense to me, I haven't read it, or I've read Hedgehog Hollow, but you definitely don't need to have done to really enjoy this. So yeah, completely has been set up. It's linked, but works as a standalone.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just wanted to pick up on that reading is obviously you give us that glimpse into reality TV and what can go on behind the scenes. Is that something you've got any sort of personal experience of, or have you ever come across reality TV in your normal life?
No, well, TV, yes. A very long time ago, way before Boldwood, I had an inkling that I would like to set a book at some point in the world of television. I wasn't quite sure what. And I decided that the best way to research, because I do like to do a lot of research and make sure my stories are authentic, was to apply for a TV show and see what goes on behind the scenes. Well, I cannot sing and I cannot dance. So, you know, it rules out quite a lot of those types of shows. And I wasn't looking for love, but I decided actually the best way to get a view of behind the scenes is maybe to go for a quiz show. Yeah. So I started by applying for Deal or No Deal, the Noel Edmonds show, and actually was shortlisted and invited to an enormous selection day up in Newcastle. Actually hated the experience. It was awful. Didn't make it beyond the first stage. It was really humiliating. They did this thing, you know, when they used to do early stages for like programs like Pop Stars Arrivals, etc. You to separate them into a couple of, you know, call out some names, you go in this room, and then there's room left, and it's like which one has failed. And heard all these names being called out, and there was some real characters there that you could just tell were going to be picked for the show because they would be different and make an impact. And when they started standing up and moving out the room, you're there thinking, okay, whoever's left in here is the fail room.
Oh.
And I was the fail room. But the worst thing is that the second stage was after, and it was the same event. So I couldn't book a taxi to go pre-book a taxi because I didn't know how long I'd be there. So then I had to sit in reception with a few other people doing this kind of weight of shame while everybody else was coming out excitedly. They've been in the second stage and you're thinking, I didn't even get through to that one.
Oh,
so
no.
There was loads more to it than that, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. But I thought, I still want to do my research. I'm not going to let it put me off. And I applied for ITV's The Chase, and that was a much smaller audition experience. Really quite a lovely experience in a hotel in New York, and I was selected as a contestant. I thought my actual lack of general knowledge, because I don't really have that much, might throw me out. But no, I got selected, and my show was aired, nearly 6 years ago now, the 2nd of June 2017. Been looking this up. If anyone's interested, season 11, episode 9.
I'm sure we can dig out a link to put.
Well, I've looked online. I've got it on a recording, but I moved office in my house, and I can't find where I've put the recording. But I do have it. But it's not online. I have looked. It has played as a repeat at least twice since then, because I've had people suddenly message me going, "Is it you I've just seen on The Chase?" And my real name isn't Jessica, my real name's Julie, so I do appear on The Chase as Julie, but of course I'm recognisable from profile pictures. So that was just an amazing experience, understanding some of the things that go on behind the scenes, how they pull things together. For example, the big thing they do on The Chase is that they go to extraordinary lengths so that the contestants don't know who the chaser is. It's amazing, they're like radioing through and making sure the chaser isn't in a corridor. So when you see on TV that the chaser appears at the top of the ladder, genuinely that's the moment that the contestants find out. So the reactions are true. You have no idea who you're going to be faced with. And mine was Sean, the Dark Destroyer.
Yeah.
And he is gorgeous. He's such a nice man. Very scary when he is looking down on you as your chaser.
Yeah, I bet.
I didn't win anything. Spoiler alert. My bestie Sharon Booth and we then also applied for Pointless, but we did it pre-lockdown, and I think then it will have all been a bit disrupted with filming, so we never heard back. But that gave me a kind of a whole lovely insight that whilst writing about a different TV type of program on Live on the Farm, I had some understanding of the process, how it works and how contestants are dealt with. And so I channeled a bit of that in my descriptions.
Is that the end of your TV career, Jessica, or do you think you might apply for another show in the future?
I think I'm done now. I would absolutely love to, but they only seem to do celebrity versions now, but I would love to have appeared on Catchphrase. Know what you see. It's one of my favourites. I just find it so funny. Mr. Chips is a hero, and Stephen Mulhern is so funny as a presenter. I mean, I used to watch it way back in the day, but he's great as the presenter these days. And but yeah, they just do a celebrity version.
So fun.
I'm saying it never appeared. Hey, celebrity writer, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Mary has left us a question which actually combines a couple of questions that I was going to ask you. So I thought I would just pop Mary's question up on the screen. So what inspires you standalone? And rolled into that, I'd also be interested for you to share with everyone where you got the inspiration from for this story.
Okay. Well, if I start with kind of where I got the inspiration from and then lead it into that. The inspiration, the idea to just write something in a TV series was just, it's something that popped into me ages ago, just as a different setting. And really, it was probably in my head when I first started out writing, I was planning to be a rom-com writer. That was what I used to read. That's what I was going to write. And my earlier books, the start of the Welcome to Whitstable Bay series, are a little bit lighter. But then as I got into that series, they got a bit darker and a bit more emotional as they went along. And I realised that I was more of a contemporary women's fiction writer. But I still didn't want to let go of the idea of having something set in TV. For this particular story, as far as Barney goes, when I was writing the second book in the Hedgehog Hollow series, New Arrivals at Hedgehog Hollow, a character called Fizz turns up with hoglets that she has rescued. And she was only ever meant to be just some random person who turns up with some hoglets. But she arrived completely fully formed, wearing a sparkly dungaree top with bright pink bunches. And I just absolutely loved her. I could picture her immediately. And she then became one of the main characters in the whole series. And quite early on in that book, she's telling Samantha, the owner of the rescue centre, a little bit about her family. And she mentions this brother who has been unlucky in love because he picks the wrong women. And it was just a throwaway line. And as soon as I wrote it, I just thought, oh, I want to know more about him. And Fizz also talks about how she gets her name. It's her real name's Felicity, and she hates it, but she makes a joke and says, yeah, but my poor brother got worse. Don't know what our parents are thinking. He's called Barnaby, and that gets shortened to Barney. And again, just having that idea of somebody called Barnaby shortened to Barney, I just had this feel he had to be my hero of a story. It had to be connected to reality TV. I didn't know what it was going to be, but then over time, because of the unsuitable women comment, it had to be a dating show. In the Hedgehog Hollow books, he never appears. Well, he does make an appearance. He clears the track of snow one winter, but he never speaks. We never find out what he looks like. So he's not really a character in it, even though he's mentioned several times. So that taking him gave me a great opportunity to explore completely from scratch a brand new character, create what they look like, but also a new setting. And the farm had been mentioned, but I never described it. And I think with this one, having written quite a few series, it was just about, let's write something different that features this one-off story and just see where it goes. I am known for writing series. I find it very difficult to write standalones because my head doesn't work that small. Nia will testify that nearly every time I come up with an idea, I then go, but actually, I've had this idea for a sequel. And, Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow was going to be one story, wasn't it? And 6 later. It works big, but it was really nice. One of my favorite bits about writing a story is creating the characters, creating the characters around them who make up their life, their family, their friends, creating the new setting. And having written 4 books in a row just before that were all sequels, it was so nice to be able to do that with this. I don't know if I fully answered Mary's question.
Yeah, you did. And I was going to follow up and ask, how did you find writing a standalone? And I think you've answered that. It's obviously something you don't find comes naturally to you necessarily, but
no. Yeah, and the closest thing I really have to a standalone story is Christmas Wishes at the Chocolate Shop, because it kind of is its own. But having said that, that's part of a 3-book series because they're all set in shops in Castle Street at Christmas. But that one's the least linked to the other 2. They're very closely connected. Even my book, The Secret of Happiness, which is my very first one that I submitted to Boldwood, which got me my contract, it was a standalone book, but actually one of the main characters in there is the best friend of Gemma, who's the main character in All You Need Is Love. So they're a pairing of books, and they can be read either way. You can just read one of them, but they are closely connected. I love taking characters and then just finding a secondary character and thinking, oh, they have a story. What's that going to be? And that tends to be, not every secondary character has a story. Not everyone is going to be interesting, but those that are, they do shout quite a bit and demand that they have a book dedicated to them. And you're like, well, I can't refuse them.
So what are we saying about Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn? Is there going to be a sequel?
Great question. So there wasn't meant to be. But we had a conversation, didn't we, with, there is potential for this, but we will see what the readers think. The story is complete. So again, we're positioning it as a standalone. It is complete. The threads all wrap up in that. However, there are potentially a couple of things in there that I've put that the sort of things that any writer of a standalone story would put in there. There's some little points that you can think, oh, this is going to happen in the future. And the early feedback was so many people assuming it was a series, despite the word standalone all over the blurb. I think probably because they know me for writing in series. And then lots of others going, oh, it's not a series, but please let it be a series. Really want a sequel. The people have asked. We cannot ignore the people.
No.
So we have agreed that we are going to write a sequel, aren't we? And but we've got our 24 2023 release is all planned, so it would be a 2024 one. But originally, I was planning that Amber would be the narrator, and it would kind of very much continue on like that, like the Starfish Cafe series has done, and like Hedgehog Hollow has done. But I've had a change of mind, and there is going to be a different narrator. There will be 2 points of view, a male and a female. Do we want to say what it involves, or are we going to keep that?
I don't know. I feel like I'm quite enjoying the comments, people asking, trying to guess who it's going to be. So Andrea is very much seeing a story for Joel, which is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Grace is just wanting us to go back to Bumblebee Barn, so that's great. I think you can probably give people a sneak peek.
Yeah. So the main female narrator is going to be Zara. So Amber's assistant. She will be telling the story, and it's going to involve an owlery. Owls! Yes. I love owls.
I love owls.
I've always wanted to write something involving owls. I was a brown owl for 7.5 years, and so owls are particularly special to me. And I had my team of tawny owl, snowy owl, etc., etc. And I've got quite a bit of owl merch and books about owls. And so yeah, it's going to be an owlery. If anybody doesn't know what an owlery is, it is somewhere where owls stay, live, roost, are safe. And so yeah, the main male character runs an owlery in the area.
Very exciting. Very exciting. We're getting lots of real mix of questions coming in. I'm going to give you a couple of quick fire questions. Actually, there's also a lot of love for catchphrase going on. And Lindsay's actually Lindsay Mulhern, so that's a really good claim to fame. So we love that. A couple of quick fire questions, Jessica. So Misa's just asking, why did you go with the pen name?
Oh, great question. So it all stemmed at an RNA conference, Romantic Novelists Association, for those who aren't members, where a group of writing friends and I were sat having a conversation about names and how potentially the name that you have can age you. And there are some readers out there who won't read a book if they feel that they can't relate to the age of the characters, and if they see somebody with a certain name, they in their head, that person's that old and therefore couldn't write a story that I relate to. And we were talking particularly, one of my friends is called Deirdre, which would probably put you in your 70s-ish, maybe. I think Deirdre from Coronation Street, I suppose, the most famous one. And then it suddenly made me realise that my name, Julie, very much dates me to having been born in the 60s or 70s, which I was. I'm 50. And I just, at the time, I was writing about people who were in their 20s, early 30s, and I was in my early 40s at the point. And I just thought, I wouldn't like somebody to dismiss my book by thinking, can't relate to somebody called Julie. I know that might seem a bit silly now, but it was a conversation we're having. Also, I was struggling to I've been going through the submissions process, and I had quite a few rejections at this point, and was starting to think, I might go indie, and I can't sell. I am the world's worst salesperson. I get heebie-jeebies if I have to sell anything. And the idea of kind of going out as an indie and saying, buy my book, it just felt really uncomfortable. And psychologically going and saying, buy Jessica's book, it just, I know it's not, but in my head, absolutely, because I used to be a graduate recruiter and I'd go out to careers fairs and I would promote the company. And that was, wasn't selling, but it was promoting. And so I just felt I could do that. And so thought I'd come up with a pen name. Also, my real surname, people get wrong all the time. It's Heslington. I don't mind it being known. It's which is the same as the place in York where York University is. But I get Heffington, Heseltine, all sorts of different things. People can't spell it, they can't say it. And so I didn't want that either. So Jessica came from a name that I love, a timeless name, and a name that I did have on the list of names I would love to call our daughter if we had a girl, that my husband vetoed, because if anybody is about the same age as us, some mothers do have them, with Frank Spencer back it's popular in the 70s. He had a daughter called Jessica, and he used to say, Jessica, and my husband just said, we're not having a daughter called that. So that became my writing name. And Redland, when I came up with the idea for my first book, I lived in Reading on a road near Reading University called Redlands Road. And so I took that, I wanted it to mean something to me and my writing. So I took the name of the road, chopped the S off, and became Jessica Redland. So I made up my surname. And I've never regretted, actually. And people used to say, oh, but do you not think it's, if you can't see your name on a book, it's not right. But it is my name. It just happens to be my pen name. So,
No,
long answer to that question, but any aspiring writers there, it's that's the reason.
Well, Jane is also a fan of Some Mothers Do Have Them, so you're not alone with that. Just one more quick 5 questions before we talk a bit more about Bumblebee Barn. A question from Lindsay: who is your author idol?
I guess I would need to say the person who got me really thinking about writing romance, and that would be Jill Mansell. And she was kind of the first author. Jill and Marion Keyes were the first authors who wrote romance that I read, and I just fell in love with the genre. And so Jill, I read all of her earlier books, owned them in paperback. I now have my hardback collection of probably her later books. See just behind me where there's an on-air sign, there's a load of hardbacks there. They're all Jill's. I've maybe got about the last 12. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her at the last couple of conferences, although I'm so pathetic. I still go all fangirly over her. And just, oh, Jill. So I just think she's amazing. She's such a lovely person as well when you do meet her. So,
Oh, that's really nice. So going back to Bumblebee Barn, so could you tell us, and this is always a difficult question, is there a new character in this novel that's been a particular favourite of yours?
Oh, do you know, Rush? I love Barney. I mean, who wouldn't want a farmer Barney? I want one of those. I would like him wrapped up in my stocking at Christmas. I don't think the husband would appreciate it, but lovely. And I love creating my villains, and there are a few little baddies in this book too. But my favourite character was actually the star of the bit that I read, Rain. I just think she's absolutely hilarious. There's nothing I can do with her in a future book. She's just not a character I would write about, but as soon as she arrived, I could picture her, I could hear her, I could imagine all her mannerisms and her emphasized speech. And she's fabulous. All of the contestants are fun, but her. Oh, are we still there?
Sorry, carry on.
So Rain would be my favourite character. She definitely made me laugh. My own writing made me laugh, but
I love that. Tanya definitely agrees. She says Rain is such a character. We love that. And in terms of the process of writing this book, and obviously every book is a different journey, was there a particularly difficult part about writing this book that you would share?
Oh gosh, yes. My typical thing is containing the story. My mind just was like, oh, all of this could happen. And originally I had an emotional thread involving Barney's best mate Joel and his brother, didn't I? And I also had a thread, and so interesting, somebody says, oh, Joel's story. I had a thread involving Joel and Zara at one point. And the feedback from Nia, you don't see these points. This is why working with an editor is so brilliant. She just points out, there's so much going on, but it takes the kind of emphasis away from the main story that I'm trying to tell about the reality TV show, and kind of giving too much airtime to some of the secondary characters. And so we cut both of those storylines. Another thing was getting that balance between Hedgehog Hollow treats for fans of Hedgehog Hollow, but not so many that it became a Hedgehog Hollow book, because that was never the intention. And that was really hard. And again, we needed to take a few bits out. There was something that I really loved near the end that Nia absolutely loved as well, but just we had to go, it makes it too much Hedgehog Hollow. Now, I'm not going to say what that is because it may well appear elsewhere. But yeah, that, you know, again, tricky to cut that. Physically, I was writing it in the summer heat wave last year. I wrote it across the 6 or 7 weeks from the beginning of July to mid-August. Oh my goodness, I was melting. I didn't sit in my pants, but I had fans on me everywhere, and that's really hard to work. But the absolute biggie was The Pressure of Hedgehog Hollow. It has been such a loved series, and I got quite a bit of grief, most of it nicely meant, but quite a bit of grief from readers, the fact that I had finished the series. And I felt like I really let some people down with that, who got really quite angry with me for having dared to end it. And it was time, you know, as an author, I knew when it was time to end it. But because it had been so beloved, and because people were getting quite irate about it having ended, I was a bit fearful as to how a new book would be received that wasn't a Hedgehog Hollow book. I was knew that I had My Safety of Whisper Bay, which a lot of people love as well. But I don't really understand why there are some readers who will not touch anything other than Hedgehog Hollow, which is such a shame, because, you know, Whisper Bay is me. Same kind of story to expect, well, different characters, different setting, but it's still me. But yeah, that really kind of unnerved me quite a bit. And for a while I was sitting staring at the computer doing very, very little, because the voices in my head were going, you can't create anything as good as Hedgehog Hollow, so don't even try to. And that took quite a bit of talking myself over. And I think I'd always have Nia at the end of a phone or an email, just for some kind of encouragement when those demons do mess me about a little bit.
Well, you definitely overcame them, and you've written an absolutely brilliant book. So, you know, you've also shown them. So I think that's, you know, I'm just so pleased that you managed to get through that, and you've written a brilliant book, which your readers are already loving. So that's all worked out brilliantly.
Yeah, I mean, you said it's one of your favourites. It's actually one of my favourites as well.
Yeah.
And I had some tough edits on it. And I got to the, you know, the point of, I hate this book. It's the worst thing ever written in the history of all the books that have been written by anybody. But then actually it's ended up being one of my absolute favourites. And it was funny because we were watching the crime panel last night, and I asked the question, I don't know if anybody caught that. If not, do catch up on it. It's brilliant for bolded crime authors. And I posed the question, do you have a favourite book of yours? And if so, why? And actually one of the members, Diana, was saying that you couldn't possibly, it's like picking from your children. And to an extent it is, but I think there was always, for me, there are stories that I just think, you know, I just loved everything about that one. I love them all, but there's just some that just nudge ahead, and this is one of them for me.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So your books are obviously very popular in ebook, you've done really well in paperback, but audio has been a really brilliant format for you, and you know, people are really enjoying listening to your audiobooks. So Sarah is one of your audiobook fans, and she's just asking, she's saying, the voices are always so fantastic. What's the process of casting the right actor to bring the book to life? Which I think is a really interesting question.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Hi Sarah, thank you. Sarah's been so fabulous and such a great supporter. It's such an honor to have the books bought in audio, and it just takes it to so many different readers. Love the format. I get sent over usually 2 or 3 links. So first of all, I'm asked if there's any kind of particular thoughts. And for me, it's really important that because my books are set in the north, that I have a northern voice. It doesn't need to be region specific. I'm not trying to get somebody with a Scarborough accent or East Yorkshire accent or something like that. But as long as it's northern, so therefore it can't be something like Liverpudlian or Mancunian, because that wouldn't be right. So I then get sent over via Nia from the recording studio, a company called Isis Audio, a few examples, and I will listen to them. What you can also do is, when you go into Audible, you can search on a particular narrator, because what we have to remember is that they're actors, so they're voice actors, but they are actors, so they can adjust the tone of their voice to make the character sound older, younger, adjust accents. And so I tend to try to listen to a few recordings they've gone, and what I might do is go back and say, I'd like that one, but I'd like them to be speaking like they are on this book by this author, because that feels more comfortable for something that I've got. So most of my books are recorded by the same 2 female narrators, Emma Swan and Lucy Brownhill, and they have such fabulous feedback. And then I've had a couple of male narrators in, so I've used for this one the same male narrator, Gareth Bennett Ryan. I nearly went downhill, Ryan. Bennett Ryan, as I use for Jake in the Starfish Cafe series, and just love seeing the feedback, and obviously a narrator makes or breaks an audiobook, and there'll always be some people who don't like who you pick and will give up, but there'll always be somebody who doesn't like the book that you've written. So great question. I love picking. It's great.
Really good question. Get that one down. So will you give us a bit of a sneak peek, Jessica, into what you're writing next?
Yes, so I have just literally this week on Monday finished my next book, which is Summer Nights at the Starfish Cafe, which is the third and final series in the Starfish Cafe series. So I still have the copy editing and proofreading stages to go through, but to all intents and purposes, that's now parked, out 28th of April, up for pre-order now. And we had a cover reveal yesterday, and it's gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous.
So I am now about to start the first book on a brand new series, brand new setting. So adding lakes and mountains to my repertoire and taking readers to the beautiful Lake District, to the shores of Derwentwater, not too far from Keswick, which is my spiritual home. We don't have a name for it yet. We don't have a name for the book. We don't have a name for the place where I'm going to be setting it. Very much like I've done with Whitstable Bay, it will be a fictional place grounded within reality, so it will be positioned on Derwentwater near Keswick, and I will make it very public at the time as to which area I'm basing it on, but it will be a fictional version of that so that I can do what I like with it. I can put whatever pub I want there, I can put whatever shop, house, road, tractor garage, I don't know, whatever I want with it, which is a great thing. So love the lakes, and very excited to be doing that.
That is really, really exciting. And one of your other very beloved locations is obviously Whitstable Bay, which features in Starfish Cafe series and obviously has its own series and standalone novels on its own. Are we going back to Whitstable Bay at any point? Because I know that many fans will be desperate to know, because it's been a while.
It has been a while, so we certainly are. I mean, obviously the Starfish Cafe is out, but that's just outside Whitstable Bay. So although it's in the Whitstable Bay family, it's just outside. But my Christmas release, which will probably be out, we don't have a date as such, maybe October time.
Yeah, hopefully September. But
that will be back to Whitstable Bay, to Castle Street. So the fans of Castle Street are going to be very happy with that. And this is something that I've actually talked about doing in previous live, maybe over a year ago. I talked about doing it, and then we put it on hold to finish the Hedgehog Hollow series. It will be set in a cat cafe on Castle Street. So I can't wait to write that. There is a cat cafe in a street in Scarborough on Bath Street called Steampuss Cat Cafe, and it's gorgeous. So I visited there. I've done research already. I'll be going again. I've been to the Cat Cafe in Leeds as well, which is much bigger scale. So I can't wait to add cats to my little repertoire. Any excuse to buy some more furry Christmas and merchandise from around the office.
I love it. Grace puts it really nicely. She says, "New business, new characters." So that would be lovely. So I think that would be
Grace.
great. So I've got a few more questions quick fire from the audience that I'm just going to fire at you to do with the process. So Tanya's just asking, do you use the same illustrator for your books? They have such beautiful covers.
Fabulous question. Yes, for the last several, but I've had two different illustrators. So my The Secret to Happiness and my Welcome to Whitstable Bay series are all by one illustrator, and then everything since then is by a lady called Debbie Clement, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Love them. So she just comes up trumps every time with it, and really pleased with them.
Really fantastic. Lindsay's asking, how do you work out what genre you're writing? Can it be fluid and changeable?
Yes, really interesting. So overall, I write under a banner of what we would call romance. But there is so much variation within romance. So you would have, your romantic comedies. You might have romantic suspense. contemporary women's fiction, book club fiction, potentially even, depending on the themes of it, loads more. And as an author, I would say you just tell the story that you feel needs to be told. Some authors don't really like labels, but labels, as far as genres go, do help position it to readers. It helps. I mean, actually, Nia, that's probably a great one really for you to answer from a publisher's perspective.
Yeah, it's such a broad genre, women's fiction, romance. I think that there's very few books that you could probably very specifically categorize into one or the other, or romantic comedy, or issues-led women's fiction. There's so much cross-genre, across the board. And I think that the most important thing is that readers love these books. And what's nice is people might come to your books, for example, and think that because we package them in a really light-hearted, beautiful way, then they're really surprised when there's some really hard-hitting issues in there, but then really pleasantly surprised, because the depth and the issues that you really tackle in your books, I think it really resonates with people. So I think that it's hard to categorize, because I would say that you do a bit of a mix of romance, women's fiction, issues led, a real mix. So yeah, no, it is tricky, but I think that the most important thing is telling your story. I think it's, if you sit down and write and say, right, I'm writing a romantic comedy and that's what I'm going to try and do, you're pigeonholing yourself in a way where you could be exploring other themes, and actually readers might enjoy it more. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, a really, really interesting subject, and one that does get discussed a lot, particularly at the RNA and that sort of thing, and how we categorize things. But yeah, no, it's
I mean, I'd say, Lindsay, if you are writing, just keep writing and find your voice and find out what works for you. Because as I said, I thought I would be writing more rom-com at the beginning, but then I found that my characters had more that I wanted to explore, more emotional. But I think because I was reading more romantic comedy, that was naturally what I would start writing, and it just evolved over time. But I do have I have lighter books, Christmas at Carly's Cupcakes. Yeah, there are some issues, but I don't go into quite as much depth with them because I wanted to keep it purely set in December, Christmas, light. Whereas a couple of our other Christmas books, particularly Starry Skies Over the Chocolate Pot Cafe, there's some really deep stuff in there, but still a Christmas book. And again, Christmas books get a massive depth of what you explore. And I think, as a reader, it's lovely because there's so much you can delve into, so many different things, so many surprises.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's a really, really good, really good note to end on. Thank you so much for your time, Jessica. It's been absolutely brilliant, as always, to catch up with you and celebrate the release of this brilliant book. Everyone in the comments, I mean, everyone's just loves the series, loves the book, loves you, and it's just been such a delight.
Love my on-air sign as well.
Everyone's loving the on-air sign. Everyone's loving the
from the husband a year ago. Completely forgot about it, and then remembered about it today and dug it out. So
yeah, no, everyone is loving the on-air sign, the cat cafe, and the owls. There's been a lot of owl love. So yeah, although Helen Rolfe just had to highlight to us that she's allergic to cats, so she won't be taking a visit with you for research. But yeah, well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for your time, and thanks for answering all our brilliant questions. And we'll see you really soon.
Lovely. Thank you so much for hosting, and thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to everybody who has shared the love for Humble. It's not even called that. Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn. This week it's really been an amazing publication week so far. So thank you all.
Brilliant. And thank you, everyone. And please do pick up a copy if you haven't already. And I hope you enjoy it. And goodbye from us. Love the bumblebees. So sweet. So sweet. Bye.